Hello everyone, it's Sharon here. Today on the podcast, I've got the wonderful Amy Kennedy, and she owns the Organising Bee, which is a professional home organising and decluttering service. And she helps others add value to the lives of others. Through her business, the Organising Bee, Amy supports busy women and families experiencing chronic disorganisation. You guys know I love this topic. Many of whom have autism, ADHD, depression, anxiety, and other brain-based conditions. To ease the pressure of everyday life by providing one-on-one, hands-on organisational support within the family home. She provides a holistic and client-centric approach to ensure that all clients' homes are organised and in a way that supports their needs, capacity and lifestyle. I am so excited to have you here. Thank you so much, Amy.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to speak to you today, Sharon.
Oh, I'm so excited as well. And I think that this topic is going to be something that is very popular with our beautiful families. So tell me a little bit about what you do and why you do it.
Yeah, so I guess you've covered a lot in the beautiful intro there, so thank you. But I think primarily what I do is that I support people to make their lives easier, and that's within their home. So majority of my clients are busy women, but I've found over the last I guess 12, 18 months, there's been a bigger shift towards people that are neurodivergent. So whether or not they have ADHD or autism or a combination of both. So it's really around setting that space up so it really works for them. And I do it, I guess, why do I do it? Because I get a lot of pleasure and joy out of helping other people succeed and to be able to have that confidence in their own life, to know that they can do it. They can have their house organised, and all the flow-on effects of having your house organised that impacts, relationships, their employment, and so it's like their health. And so, yeah, that's kind of, why I do it and how I little fit in.
That's so amazing. Now, one of the things that I often talk to my clients about, especially those clients that have neurodiversity themselves, is that they know that they want a more organised home. They know that they do better when things are clearer and more minimalist and organised and have structure. But maybe for them, it's just very overwhelming about finding a place to start, or maybe the house has gone past a point where it's now a place of overwhelm instead of being a place of retreat and a place that's meets their sensory needs, and it just becomes so overwhelming to start. So can you explain a little bit about when you come to a family that perhaps has neurodiversity like ADHD or autism in there, what sort of things are they struggling with when you go in there?
Yeah, well, you've described that really well. So usually as soon as I meet a client, they're at a breaking point. So, they've tried absolutely everything that they can. They've read as many books as they can. They've tried so many different strategies, and nothing seems to be working for them. So usually what we do is we just have a really good, honest conversation about, how they're using their home, what their challenges are, what are their processing modalities, their learning styles, their preferences? Do they like things left out on tables? Do they need that visual reminder to be actually able to remember to do a task? Or is that having a stack of papers or a collection of things in a bowl on the counter too overwhelming for them, and then they need it behind closed doors? So we're talking a lot about just individual preferences, and we're then using those individual preferences to set up the home that makes sense for that individual or that family. So what makes sense to me as an organiser might not make sense to the individual, and what makes sense to the individual might not make sense to me necessarily, but we work through that process to make sure that it's really logical steps in terms of the way that the area is organised, but also a clear system that they can maintain it, that makes sense to them. So it doesn't matter what it looks like, it doesn't matter what containers are used, or it's just really about making sure that it makes sense to them and it's something that they're able to physically, I guess, do.
Yeah.
So we
And
don't
continue
want
on with.
and continue. Yeah, we don't want to make something too complex or too challenging for the individual or for the family. So it's very, very tailored. And so there's no right or wrong way, or there's no specific set formula that works for everybody. It's very, very tailored.
Oh, I love
in the way
this.
that we organise each person's home. So,
Oh, I love it so much. Yeah.
yeah, I love it too, because I'm in this beautiful space where, you know, I get to learn a lot about their family, but also, you know, we're co-creating a wonderful relationship to make sure that, you know, there's time to practice and workshop and make sure it actually works for them. It's not a come in once, set it up and goodbye, here you go. We're like gradually over time building on the system so that they can practice it and make sure that, okay, we thought it would work, or they thought that that would work, but actually in reality, when, you know, they get the kids home from school and their kids actually do something totally different, well, let's change the system to work with, yeah, the way that their individual brain works. So.
I think it's a really beautiful thing that you're offering, because I don't know how much you know about my background, but some of the things that I learned about ADHD, I learned from doing experiments on my own family. So what I would do is I would get them to come into the room, and I'd have stuff everywhere, and I'd mess it all up, and I'd have it really chaotic looking, and I would monitor their behaviour and see what happens. And it was particularly evident in my husband. He's probably the most extreme case of ADHD that we have in our family. And he wanted to get out of the room. He had really jerky body language. He was obviously stressed, and he just wanted to get out, like when it was chaotic. But when it was calm and things had a system, it wasn't necessarily perfect looking, but it had, you know, things had systems and things were generally put away, he was quite happy to be settled in the room. So I know not everyone's brain works exactly the same as my family's, but it was just interesting to notice that the environment had such a role to play in how they felt about that space.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I really love that you did that. And that's one thing that I always say when I meet someone for the first time is like, don't tidy up for me. Please don't tidy up, because where your shoes are, or where your keys are, or where your handbag is, that's where we need to build the system.
That's a
So,
great
you know,
point. Yeah.
if you take your shoes off near the front door, well, that's where your shoes need to be stored. If you take your shoes off near the, you know, under the kitchen table, well, maybe that's where the shoe rack or shoe storage needs to be, or a shoe basket needs to be. It may not be, you know, logical as, you know, your shoes should be in the wardrobe or they should be in the entry, but any of those simple systems, looking at, you know, the natural behaviours, it's so much easier to maintain.
Yeah, it has to work for that individual. And I really like it that you're tailoring it so much, because that's really encouraging the person to have buy-in on it, and to keep up the system, because anyone can make a certain area look Instagram like worthy, you know, like it can look beautiful, but if it doesn't work, then they're going to go straight back to it being overwhelming. And I love that you're able to give these families a little bit of you know, those systems that they might be craving, that sometimes it takes an outsider to come in and have a look at things from a, you know, sometimes we're just so close to the problem area. And, you know, when we're working with predictable problems, I know even in my own family, when you're so close and you're living it day to day, you might not see that there's an easy solution just right in front of your face, you know, like something as simple as, you always take your shoes off there. Why don't we have the system there instead of the front door, you know?
Yeah. I had an amazing, really and a good example there of a client who had a lot of had cats and had 2 kitty litter trays. She had a really good system that she'd have one that's in backup and one that's going. But the one that was in backup, she had nowhere to put it. So she'd just leave it on the floor in her laundry next to the one that the cat was using. And it's like, she's like, it's taking up so much room. It's so annoying. I trip over it all the time. I'm like, oh, well, let's just put it under the other one. And she was like, oh my God, I've been doing this for 5 years and I'd never even thought of putting it underneath. How stupid am I? I'm like, no, you're not stupid. It's just that.
It's just, oh, that's so good. It's just too close.
It's too close to the situation that you couldn't see it. So,
Oh,
yeah.
that's so incredible. So tell me, if you so pretend that I am a family of ADHD people, and maybe I have ADHD myself, and I call you up and I say, like, things are just out of control in my house. There's stuff everywhere. I am, really overwhelmed by my environment at the moment. How would you set about helping that person? Like, how would you start that process with them?
Well, after we've had that, I guess, conversation about what the challenges are, we just start on the biggest challenge area of their home, the thing that's going to make the biggest change. So whether or not that's getting out of the house a way to get out of the house on time, or to get their children to school on time. So then we'd set a very clear little goal about, okay, we're just going to look at the way that, the things that you need to take out of the house are stored and organised. So the shoes, the keys, the handbags, the school bags, the lunch boxes, all of those things. And then we look at the process there of the best way to organise them. And usually we work in really clear, short bursts of time. So, because it's a lot of my clients have a lot of difficulty in maintaining focus for a long period of time, and they've got, they've got brilliant, big, exciting, creative ideas, and as soon as that idea gets into their head, it's easy for them to drift off into that thought and start doing whatever it is they're thinking. So, I do body doubling, so I work alongside them. So we're doing the task together, we're talking about the space together, and we're organising the space together. And when they start getting a little bit distracted, we either use that as a time that, okay, time for a break, or time to come back in and refocus. I use, timers. I like the timer. So we set that for 15 or 20 minute.
Oh, I love it that you're working in blocks. That's great.
Time. They can focus. But some of my clients don't need that. It's all just depends on the particular client and what, they've identified what their needs are, and what I can see helps them as well. And so, we just go through that in a short block of time. And then we're really clear on what we're working on. And so if we're, working on setting up a system to get outside the house, and we come across reviewing the area, and we come across a lot of papers or school notes or in bills or things, we just make an effort to put that aside. We're not reading that. We're not looking at that now. We're really focused. And when that timer goes off, then we can go have a look and read those papers. Or, if we find something that should live in another area of the home, say children's bedroom or something like that, we're not putting that away straight away. We're collecting those and doing those another time. Because as soon as we leave the space, we just get distracted, we lose focus, and then we just can't achieve that particular task of time. So it's all about short bursts of time, really clear, defined goals of what we want to achieve, and focusing on that.
I love it. And so many of things you identified in there are such key strategies for helping the ADHD brain in those circumstances. Like even the fact that of body doubling, that can create, having someone there to do a specific task can really, create that point of interest for them to be able to get the task done. And having you there to support them is a fantastic service. So tell me, if for the people at home listening, what are some things, if they're looking around their home and they're thinking, oh my goodness, like I could I could really do with having a professional organiser come in and help us. Is there any steps that you could recommend that they could start with today that you would think that would help them on their journey? Like, I know obviously contacting yourself or a professional organiser would be something that would be really beneficial. But say what's a few things that they could take away today and think this would help me on the road to my environment becoming less overwhelming for me?
Yeah. Well, I think probably the two really key things to think about in your home is simplicity and the functionality. So simplicity, I think, in regard to the simplicity of the organising system, but simplicity in regard to the amount of things that you own as well. So, I guess to put really simply, the more you own, the more your home demands of you. So that's the more you have, the more decisions that you need to make each day, and the longer it takes to do everyday tasks. So, and if you're adding, a brain-based condition like ADHD into that, that can complicate that decision-making process even further. So, if we're reducing the number of things that you own to what you realistically use and need, you're automatically reducing the amount and the complexity of the decisions that, an individual needs to make each day. So that gives a little bit more breathing space, to do your everyday tasks. So that's probably one thing that anybody could look at quite easily. And the other is regard to the simplicity of your system, or the functionality of the system. So I use in my business the philosophy of a one-handed system. So a one-handed system is a system where you only need one hand to put things away or to get it out. So, we're avoiding things where we're stacking containers on top of each other, or we're stacking things, filling a shelf or anything so deep that you have to move all the things in front of it to get to the thing at the back. So we're looking at one single layer of things so you can see everything that you have, and you can get things out really, really easily.
I love that so much.
I do too. Because inevitably, even myself, when you're tired, exhausted, overwhelmed, if you've got a stack of containers and something it's supposed to go in the bottom one, inevitably, you're just going to I'll just put it on the top of the pile, and I'll come back to that later. The problem is later rarely comes. So, but if those still exactly the same containers are on a shelf, and so you can access the one on the bottom without having to move any of the others, it's no more difficult. It's just as easy to put it away as it is to just leave it out.
I love that. Yep, that makes total sense. Total sense.
And I believe that, if it takes you hours and hours and hours to set up the system to begin with, it's going to take you hours and hours and hours to maintain. So really look at how long it takes to set up, and if you can mirror that later on in the maintenance stage. So, if you want perfectly folded sheets or clothing, you've just got to commit to be able to do that on an everyday basis. And if you can't, that's perfectly fine. There are other ways to organise it which take a lot less time and are more manageable. And the same with sorting, pencils by colour or Legos by shape and colour. That takes a lot of time to maintain. And so sometimes it's just as efficient and as organised to put everything into all the Lego into one box together. It's just as organised. You can still find the things. It's just organised in a different way. So, and it really depends on the brain of the individual of how that they think and work and need, and how they're going to use it later.
Yes,
So.
I have seen some of my coaching clients go, they talk about maybe, wanting to implement a new strategy, and they go, because their brains are just so incredible when they hyperfocus, they go into this really deep focus of what they're going to do for this system, but perhaps that system becomes like 3 pages of complicated steps, and in theory it makes like total sense. Like, I'm like, that is amazing that you were able to think of that. But in a practical sense, when you're moving quickly and you've got competing demands, it doesn't necessarily work. So I love it how you've talked about simplifying those systems, because you need to be able to, like, I've never heard it before being referred to as a one-handed system, but that makes total sense to me, because if you can't do it with one hand, because we've got all these competing demands happening, then it's, the system isn't going to work in actual real life sense when you've got other stress coming at you. Yeah, so that was a really good point.
Yeah, thank you. And that micro level of organisation that you mentioned, that's often when I get called into a individual's home. So I can see that they've tried really, really hard. They've got really, really, really good structure in place. But it's just missing that step of how to maintain it. And it's just that little bit too complex. Like, it's very well organised and it looks brilliant. But yeah, on the practicality level, it's just too much to maintain. So it's really interesting to find that medium level, or the area where it is achievable and maintainable.
And it's that all or nothing approach. Like, I know that the wonderful ADHD brain has this tendency to go like, I am being super organised or I'm not doing it at all. So, having that really simple system that makes it actually easier for you to keep going with the system, rather than, having to put in all this effort or no effort and abandon the ship completely, I think it really is a strategy that can help them if it's so simple that it's almost more work not to do it.
Absolutely. And once you get practiced and get skilled at maintaining that system, then you can add the complexity to it, because you already know that you can maintain it. So then you can build on it. And that's also, that all or nothing is also a trait of perfectionism as well. So yeah, really interesting.
Once you go into clients' homes and you help them, perhaps you've helped them organise some areas, you've got some systems in place. What is some of the feedback that you get from your clients? How does it help their lives and change their lives?
I find this is probably why I continue to work in this space, is because the change is remarkable. Like, and you wouldn't, in some cases, you wouldn't believe it. So I've gone into people's homes where they're almost, they're at severe breaking point. They've been in and out of mental health units. They just can't function. To then being, all of a sudden, they're started up at uni, they've started their own business, they've gone out and done all these big, weird and wonderful things that they never thought were in the realm of possibility for them. But just because the house is supporting them in a way that wasn't supporting them at all previously, it's really interesting, where it's yes, it's physically about the home, but it's actually the emotional state and people's confidence and providing space in their brain, releasing that mental load to do other things. So that's where I find it most profound.
I love that so much. I think just one of my clients said to me, it's the idea of being able to have someone drop in without shame attached.
Yeah,
like being able to welcome someone into your home if they just dropped in, without walking around going, oh, like, I'm sorry about this and I'm sorry about that. Just to be able to have someone come in, and it's never going to be perfect, right? But like, be able to not feel that sense of shame as someone walks through your house. Because you've got things generally under control.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you only need an hour's notice to reset the system back to where it was, it makes such a huge difference. And I found in employment as well, people are finding that they're, able to take on more difficult responsibilities at work. They're getting acknowledged at work in a different way where they couldn't previously.
Oh, that's so good. I just think it's so exciting. And, just for people to know that there is a service that I guess a lot of our audience wouldn't know, that there's people out there that can help them set up these systems. And
Yeah.
I mean, we all shouldn't feel shame about our house, right? And we should, we should just, especially those of us with neurodiversity, like, kind of is what it is. But I still think it's something that we experience, and if a space can make us feel good and feel comforted and less overwhelmed, then that has to be a great thing for us completely, like it has to be a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to work for you. And so whatever that is the perfect solution.
Yeah, that's so. I think we have this tendency to want it to all look like a showroom, and it's either a showroom or a tip. There's no, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work for your family. Like, it's never gonna, like, actually, it's almost never going to be perfect, because we all have, kids and stuff going on, and we live the actual functional homes,
Yeah.
but they're systems that work for your family. That's the crucial part, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this, the perfection or the perfect looking home, unless you're willing and able to spend all day, every day maintaining it, it's not a realistic expectation or objective for many people, but at least people with families. Anyway, as soon as any child, whether they're neurodivergent or not, they're going to touch things. you know,
Yes.
anyone, as soon as you have a cup of coffee, you've got a mug. So unless you wash it and put it away immediately, there is going to be a mug left somewhere. And so as long as you build in your process about, after I have my cup of coffee, what do I do with my mug? Then, yeah, that makes, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So I want to say thank you so much. And there were some really good takeaways in there. Number one, that a service like yours exists. So if you're in Canberra or surrounds, please do check out Amy. And also that you can do things like, look at your system, simplify those systems, and look at those trouble spots and see if you can review it. Maybe they can get in contact with a professional organiser like you, Amy, because it would be a great asset for our beautiful families to have that advice and in-home support like you offer your beautiful clients, because sometimes it's just having that person there that could make all the difference for them. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you, Sharon. It's been a real absolute pleasure. Lovely to talk to you. And I just wanted to say to your listeners, if they're not in Canberra, there are professional organisers like me nationally. So just Google in your area, and yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to find one that can help you. So, yeah, and thank you again. It's been a pleasure.
Amazing. Thank you very much.